These are the solutions to the March 10th, 2018 Question and Answer Service SAT, Math No Calculator, Section 3. If you want to find this test, you can do a web search, or you can also search directly on Reddit, where there are many threads that link this test. The first question asks, what is the solution, xy, to the system formed by the equations? And what we have the y-axis, we have the x-axis, and we have two lines that intersect at this location right here. Two lines look approximately like this, and they intersect right there. And this is -1, and this is 2. So the solution is -1, 2, and that is B. The next question, number 2, says, a checker enthusiast is customizing a checker set by painting a design on each of the 24 checkers in the set. It takes the enthusiast 35 minutes to paint the design on each checker. So we're going to want to write 35 minutes. And then it says, if C checkers are already painted, so C are painted, and there was a total of 24 checkers. So 24 minus the amount already painted, which is C, this equals the amount left to be painted. And if it takes 35 minutes to paint each piece that is left, we're going to have 35 minutes times 24 minus C. And that is the expression that represents the number of additional minutes needed to finish painting the set of checkers. And that is C. Question number 3 asks, what is the sum of 3x to the 5th plus 4x squared plus 8 and 12x cubed minus 2x squared plus 6. And if we look at the answers, we'll notice they all have a 14 at the end, and many of them have a 3x to the 5th at the beginning. If you look at this one here and this one here, you will see that when these add up, you will get a 2x squared. And the only answer that contains a 2x squared is B. So B must be the answer, and that is the fastest way to do it. Of course, the other way to do it is to just add up all the terms. So we only have one 3x to the 5th, so it's 3x to the 5th, 3x to the 5th, and then we have a plus 12x cubed, so we have this. We have this. Now we need to do the x squareds. 4x squared minus 2x squared is 2x squared. And then we have 8 and 6 is 14. Question number 4 shows a line, and it says that line L is shown in the xy plane above. Line M, not shown, is parallel to line L. Well, if M is parallel to L, that means the slopes are the same. Slopes are equal. And the slope is the rise over the run. Slope equals the rise over the run. And we have the rise here, that's -2, because we're rising -2 because we're going down. And we are running 3. So the slope is equal to -2/3. And so the slope of M is the same as the slope of L. And then it tells you that line M passes through the point 0, 3. So you have 0, 3, which means that 3 is your y-intercept. So that means that the equation is going to be y equals the slope times x plus the y-intercept. And that makes our equation y equals negative 2/3 x plus 3. And that is A. One thing to be careful with this question is slope is usually referred to as the lowercase letter m. But what they've done is they've named the second line m, which can be confusing. You don't want to confuse the name, the italicized m, which is the name of the slope, with the lowercase m. I'm sorry, you don't want to confuse the italicized m, which is the name of the line, with the lowercase m, which is what we usually refer to as slope. Question number 5 gives the following equation: 5x plus 4y plus 3 equals 0. And we're asked for the slope. We're also asked for the y-intercept, which you must remember always occurs when x is equal to 0. So we want to change this equation here, this equation, into this kind of format: y equals mx plus b. And then this will be our slope, and then this will be our y-intercept. So if we do so, we need to get rid of this, and we need to get rid of this so that the 4y is by itself. So we have 4y, we subtract 5x from both sides, and we subtract 3 from both sides, so we get negative 5x minus 3. And then we divide both sides by 4, divide both sides by 4, which means dividing each term by 4, and these cancel, and you can see that the slope is right here, and this is the y-intercept. So the answer is A. Now they write the y-intercept. Remember, for the y-intercept, x is 0, and then this is what the y value is. So they write the answer like this: 0, comma, negative 3/4 for the y-intercept. Question number 6 gives an equation: 1/4 x minus 2 equals 3 minus x, and it asks for the value of x. Well, that means we need to collect all the x's on one side and all the numbers on the other. So I'm going to go plus x, and then plus 2, and then plus 2. These will cancel, and on the left side, I have 1/4 x plus x, which I'm going to write as 1/4 x plus my 1x, which is actually 4/4 x, and that's going to equal 5. And so that's 5/4 x is equal to 5. And you can solve this by inspection by saying that if this x here, if that equaled 4, then the x and the 4 would cancel and the equation would be true, therefore x equals 4. The other way you could do it, if you weren't comfortable doing that, is you could say, I have my 5/4 x equals 5, and I want to get rid of this here. And so I'm going to multiply by its reciprocal, which is 4/5, and then the 4 cancels the 4, and then the 5 cancels the 5. And if I multiply the left side by 4/5, I multiply the right side by 4/5, and then this 5 cancels that 5, and I'm left with a 4. So x equals 4, and that is B. Question number 7 gives this equation: 2x minus 1 x plus 2 squared is equal to 0, and it asks for the solution set to the equation. Well, the solution set occurs when this particular factor is equal to 0 and when this particular factor is equal to 0. So for this one, we're going to have an x is equal to negative 2, And for this one here, you can say that the x needs to be equal to 1/2, because then this 2 times 1/2 is 1 minus 1 gives you 0, and then the equation is true. The other way to do it is, of course, to say, well, 2x minus 1 needs to equal 0. And then I can go plus 1, those cancel. I have 2x equals 1. And then I can divide by 2 and divide by 2. Those cancel. So x is equal to 1/2. So the solution set is 1/2, comma, -2, and that is A. Question number 8 asks, in the complex number above, which of the following is equivalent to the expression? So they give us 3 plus 4i and minus 2 plus 3i. They do tell us that I is equal to the square root of -1, which is a true fact, but you don't actually need to know that for this problem. You can just treat I like a variable. The negative sign distributes to both. So we have 3 plus 4i minus 2 minus 3i, and 3 minus 2 is 1, and 4 i's take away 3 i's is I, so we just have plus I, and so the answer is B. Question 9 gives us a fraction, x minus 1 over 3 is equal to x plus 1 over 2. And they ask us, what is the solution to the equation above? That just means to solve for x. The simplest way to do it would be to, I'm going to put these in parentheses, is to cross multiply. So this times this is equal to this times that. And so we distribute. The 2 goes to the x, the 2 goes to the -1. So we have 2x minus 2 equals the 3 goes to the x, the 3 goes to the 1, 3x plus 3. And I'm going to go minus 2x from both sides. Keep the x's positive, these cancel. I'm going to go minus 3 here. Those cancel, minus 3 here. So minus 5 equals x. And so our answer is x equals -5, and that is A. Question number 10 gives us the following equation. P as a function of x equals x squared minus 11x plus k. And they say if 2 is a 0 of the function, what is the value of k? Well, the 0 of a function means that the output is equal to 0. So this is equal to 0. And then we plug in 2 for x. 2 squared minus 11 times 2 plus k. So 0 equals 4 minus 22 plus k. So 0 equals -18 plus k. So k is equal to 18. What this question is really doing is testing whether you know what a 0 means. And what a 0 means is the 0 of a function. 0 is the x value that causes the equation to equal 0. So it causes p of x to equal 0. So that would make the answer D. Question 11 gives us the following equation. 2 over 3x squared minus 1 over 6x squared, and it asks us which of the following expressions is equivalent to the expression above for x greater than 0. Of course, if x is equal to 0, then you will get 0 in the denominator, which is not allowed. So to add these up, we need to have denominators need to be the same. So it looks like I can turn this denominator here into this one by simply multiplying it by 2. And so I multiply the denominator by 2, then I must also multiply the numerator by 2, and I get 4 over 6x squared minus 1 over 6x squared, and that equals 4 minus 1 over 6x squared, which is 3 over 6x squared. And then 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and I end up with 1 over 2x squared, and that is D. Question number 12. And the questions seem to be getting a little bit harder now. We're given this equation, x minus 2 over x minus 3 equals 1 over x plus 1 over x minus 3. And they ask us to find the solution set of the equation above. And one thing you always have to be careful of is if you were to get a solution of 3, you would immediately know it was wrong, because if this is equal to 3, I would have 3 minus 3 would give me 0 in the denominator, so that wouldn't be allowed. So 3 minus 3 again would give us 0 in the denominator, that wouldn't be allowed. And so by looking at the answer choices, you can see that B and D are both immediately wrong because they include 3 as an answer choice. So if you had to guess, you would do that. You would eliminate B and D and you'd guess. But it's better to just solve it if you can. So to solve this, we're going to use a process which many math people call clearing the denominators. We're going to multiply both sides of the equation, which means multiplying every term on both sides of the equation. We're going to multiply them by something which ends up canceling all of the denominators. And in this case, what that's going to be is we multiply each term by x times x minus 3. So x minus 3, and then x and x minus 3. And what ends up happening is this x minus 3 cancels that x minus 3. This x cancels that x, and this x minus 3 cancels with that x minus 3. So in the numerator, we have x times x minus 2, and then we have x minus 3 plus x. So we just need to distribute this, x squared minus 2x equals x plus x is 2x minus 3. And we need to subtract 2x from both sides. We need to add 3 to both sides so that we get it equal to 0. So the right-hand side is equal to 0 because this is a quadratic. We always want quadratics to equal 0. X squared minus 4x now, which comes from minus 2x minus 2x, and then plus 3 equals 0. This will factor as follows. X and x, we need two numbers that multiply to positive 3 but add to negative 4, and that's negative 1 and negative 3 equals 0. And so this needs to equal 0, so x equals 1. This needs to equal 0, so x equals 3. But remember, x cannot equal 3 because we do not want to get a 3 here, because then we would get a 0 in this denominator and that denominator. And so the answer is just x equals 1, which is A. Question 13 gives us an exponential equation. P of t equals 60 times 3 to the power of t over 2. And it says that the number of microscopes organisms in a petri dish that grows exponentially with time. The function p above models the number of organisms after growing for t days in a petri dish. So t equals days. Based on the function, which of the following statements is true? Let's look at A. The predicted number of organisms in the dish triples every 2 days. So if we make t equal to 2, then we will have 3 to the t over 2 will equal 3 to the 2 over 2, which equals 1. Sorry, 3 to the 1. If t equals 4, we'd have 3 to the 4 over 2, which would be 3 to the 2. So in this case here, we'd be multiplying by 3 after 2 days. Here we'd be multiplying by 3 twice after 4 days. And so it looks like A is actually correct. The predicted number of organisms in the dish triples every 2 days. So the answer is A. Question number 14 says in the xy plane, the graph of the equation y equals 9x minus 8 intersects the graph of the equation y equals x squared at 2 points. What is the sum of the x coordinates of the 2 points? So what we need to do is set these two equations equal to each other. So we'll say that this is equal to that because they're both equal to y. X squared equals 9x minus 8. And we have a quadratic, so we want to make it equal to 0. So we're going to subtract this from both sides. We're going to add this to both sides, add 8 to both sides. So we get x squared minus 9x plus 8 is equal to 0. This will factor, and you will get an x here, an x here, a negative 1 here, and a negative 8 there, because when you factor, you need two numbers that multiply to this and add to this. So negative 1 times negative 8 is positive 8, and negative 1 and negative 8 add to negative 9. And so this will equal 0. So x equals 1 and x equals 8. You add them up and you get 9. So that's 9, D. Another clever way to do it is once you have the quadratic equation, x squared minus 9x plus 8 equals 0, there's a clever little formula that the sum of the solutions of any quadratic function is always negative b over a. So this is our b. So we'd have negative 9 over, and the number, the hidden 1 here, or the unwritten 1 is our a value. So over 1, and that would equal 9 over 1, which is 9. And this will work for the sum of the solutions of any quadratic function. Number 15 gives us the following equation: negative 4 x cubed all to the power of 2/3. And for this problem, we need to remember a couple of rules. AB all to the x will become a to the x times b to the x. Also, if we have a to the x and then to the y, this will become a to the x times y. So here we're going to have negative 4 to the 2/3 and x to the 3rd to the 2/3. Now a fractional exponent, a power of 2/3, if we have x to the 2/3, that means a couple of different things. It means the cubic root of x squared. It can also mean, or it does also mean, the cubic root of x, the whole thing squared. So we're going to use this one. We're going to square this and then take the cubic root of it. So we're going to square this and we get 16, and then we're going to take the cubic root of it. And here we're going to multiply this by this, and if we do that, we will get x to the 2nd Now, once you're here, you can look at the answers and notice that D must be wrong because it has a 2 in there. And the only other answer that has an x squared in it is C, so C must be correct by the process of elimination. However, we can continue and go cubic root 8 times 2 for the 16 x squared, and that will become the cubic root of 8, the cubic root of 2 times x squared, and this is 2x squared cubic root of 2, remembering, of course, this rule that the square root of a times b is equal to the square root of a, the square root of b, but it could also be the cubic root of ab is the cubic root of a times the cubic root of b. So that makes the answer C. And that's it for the multiple choice portion of this section. Number 16 gives us the following triangle, and it gives us some information. It says that BC is 8. Well, we know that from the drawing. It also says that the cosine of x degrees is root 3 over 2. And that should trigger something in your memory. We have the cos of C is equal to root 3 over 2. So what that means is that this would be root 3, and this would be a 2, which means that this is a 30-degree angle because a 30, 60, 90 triangle looks like this. 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 1, 2, and root 3, which means that this would have to be 1. And so they're asking for the length of AB. Well, you can see that the triangle that is labeled in black is 4 times bigger than the triangle labeled in red. And so AB must just equal 4. The other way to do it would be to say that this is x. So you could say x over 8 equals 1 over 2. And now you can really see that x equals 4. Number 17 gives us the following equation. 1 over x plus 1 over x minus 1 is equal to 0. And again, this is an exercise in clearing the denominator. So I'm going to multiply this numerator by, or both sides of the equation really, by x times x minus 1, x times x minus 1, and of course the right-hand side as well by x times x minus 1. Well, we'll still have 0 on the right side. The x minus 1 cancels the x minus 1, leaving us with 1 times x, which is x. And then this x cancels this x, leaving us with x minus 1. So we have x plus x is 2x minus 1 equals 0. X is equal to 1/2. You could also say 0.5. If you're not sure how I got that, you could solve the equation by adding 1 to both sides. 2x equals 1 over 2 over 2. Those cancel, and there's x equals 1/2. Number 18 gives us the following information. It says f of negative 1 equals 12, f of 1 equals 16. So this is basically your x1, this is your y1, this is your x2, and this is your y2. They ask for the slope. And the slope is equal to the change in y over the change in x, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which would be 16 minus 12 over 1 minus negative 1, which is 4 over 1 plus 1 is 2, which is 2. So the slope is equal to 2. Number 19 tells us that an angle measure of 540 degrees was written in radians as x pi. What is x? Well, One way to do it is to know that when you have a circle, this is pi radians over here. This is 2 pi radians when you get back to the start. We started at 0 radians. This here is 1/2 pi radians, and this is 3/2 pi radians. Now 540 degrees equals 1 1/2 times around. It's also 6 times 90 degrees. So we can just use this fact. This is the quickest way to do it. We have 1 times 90, 2 times 90, 3 times 90, 4 times 90, 5 times 90, and 6 times 90, which means we have 1/2 pi, 2 halves pi, 3 halves pi, 4 halves pi, 5 halves pi, and 6 halves pi to get to 540 degrees. 6 halves pi is 540 degrees, and so it's 3 pi. X is equal to 3. The other way to do it is to remember that pi is 180 degrees, and that ratio is x over 540 degrees. And so we can do cross multiplication. 180x equals 540 pi over 180 over 180. Those cancel, the zeros cancel. 18 divided by 6 is 3. 54 divided by 6 is 9. So we have 9 pi over 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So this is equal to 3 pi. So x equals 3. Question number 20. Tamika is ordering desktop computers for her company. The desktop computers cost $375 and taxes an additional 6% of the total cost of the computers. If she can spend no more than $40,000, including tax, what is the maximum number of computers Tamika can purchase? So we need to find 6% of 375. So we're going to go 0.06 times 375. 6 times 5 is 30. 0, carry the 3. 6 times 7 is 42. So that's 45. Carry the 4. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 4 is 22. And the decimal point, 2250. So the total price of the computers is $375 plus 2250. And that ends up being 50, 7, 9, $397.50. We're going to call that 400. And so if she can spend $40,000, we're going to divide that by $400 per computer, and the zeros cancel. 400 divided by 4 is 100 computers. But she's going to have a little bit of change because each computer doesn't cost $400, it only costs $397.50. So this is $250 less than 400. So she's going to save $2.50 100 times, which means she's going to save $250 because she's only spending $397.50 and not $400. But this $250 is not enough to buy another computer, so she can only buy 100 computers. And that's it. Those are all the 20 problems of Section 3. Thanks for watching, and good luck on the SAT.